All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Mary Baldwin's Homecoming 2021 and Learning Power Hour #1. I'm Amy Davenport, the Director of Donor Engagement and Stewardship, and we are thrilled that you carved time out of your schedule to be here with us today. We know that the kickoff and keynote was so awesome that it went over a little, so we're allowing folks to come into this Learning Power Hour session after the intended start time of 1:10, which is no problem. Know that we'll probably extend the end time to 2:10 as well, so we give Kimberly her full presentation time. So we're so excited and blessed to have Kimberly Bellamy from George Mason University here with us for Learning Power Hour 1 to share her expertise. Now, if you did register for the other concurrent Learning Power Hour 1 session, Keeping Your Best Foot Forward, unfortunately that session was canceled, but we're glad you could hop over with Kimberly to hear her expertise. We still think that the knowledge she will share will be so helpful and wonderful for you to hear. So just a few bits of housekeeping, which most of you already know, and I can see you're doing it. We're so used to Zoom and virtual sessions now. Throughout Kimberly's presentation, if you don't mind keeping your mic on mute to prevent any feedback noise, but we definitely want you to ask questions. So if you hover your mouse at the bottom of the screen, a toolbar should appear, and we will have the chat functionality on. So if you have questions throughout the presentation, don't hesitate to post those there, and then we'll facilitate those questions at the end of Kimberly's presentation during the Q&A component. So without further ado, it is my honor to turn the floor over to Kimberly Bellamy.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this Learning Power Hour. I am just going to take a moment here to share my screen, and then we'll get going. Yeah, from start. Okay, so welcome everyone and happy homecoming. Again, thank you for joining us for this Learning Power Hour. My name is Kimberly Bellamy, and I'm very excited to be presenting to you today on discovering your strengths, practical applications in your personal and professional lives. I want to start just by providing a quick introduction of myself so we can get to know one another a bit. Amy already shared that I previously worked at George Mason University in the Career Services Office, and that's where I became very familiar and trained on StrengthsFinder. In addition to working at George Mason University, I have about 12 years of higher education experience across various different areas, including academic advising, academic support, career development, as I mentioned, and most recently, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Across all of those different areas, I have had the opportunity to work with students, alumni, friends, family, community members on really figuring out how to articulate what their key skills, experiences are, and translating that into their next steps, whether that be an internship, a job, a career change, or just figuring out how to best start a separate initiative such as a small business or extracurricular activities. So I'm very excited to talk with y'all today, and hopefully you can find some practical applications in your lives as well. So first I want to start with our objectives for this session. One, we're going to really talk about the theory behind strengths. For those of you that had the opportunity to take the StrengthsFinder, you'll notice that you only received your top 5, and I'll explain the reason why for only receiving that top 5 and kind of the method behind that madness of having 34 different options, but only getting the top 5. 2, we're going to discuss the importance of engagement. So with that, not only understanding what strengths means to you individually, but how exactly can you best utilize that within your interactions and engagement with others. 3, we're going to explore the top 4 or the 4 main domains of StrengthsFinder. Then we're going to move into reflecting a little bit about your results and how it can be applied in your lives, either in a professional realm or in personal. And then lastly, we're going to wrap up with a short discussion to talk about how would you like to apply this information moving forward. So doing a little bit of goal setting there. So first, we are going to start with talking about the theory behind strengths. So as I mentioned, you should have only received your top 5 strengths, although there are 34 available. And there is reasoning behind that. With StrengthsFinder, they want you to focus most of your attention on the areas in which you already have natural instincts and natural inclination to perform in those areas. A great way to kind of describe that theory and that reasoning is this quote from Peter Drucker, who was referenced as the inventor of management by Business Weekly some time ago. And his business ideologies and practices are still used very widely amongst a lot of different companies and organizations. But one of the key contributions that I wanted to add for the purpose of this presentation was his quote that said, "One should waste as little effort as possible on improving areas of low competence. It takes far more energy to improve from incompetence to mediocrity than it takes to improve from first-rate performance to excellence." So if we think about that quote and take out, I guess, the core pieces from that statement, it takes far more energy to improve from incompetence to mediocrity than it takes to improve from first-rate performance to excellence. And I think that's a great way to describe why we focus on those top 5 strengths and focusing all of our energy and attention there instead of saying, oh, I'm gonna go to the bottom of the list and make sure that I'm focusing on these areas so I can be excellent and excel in those areas as well. When the reality is that likely we wouldn't be able to achieve the same level of excellence because those probably aren't our natural abilities and skills. So that's part of the reason why we only focus on those top 5s. If you're interested in receiving your full report, I think the Gallup has the option for you to access that. But I know for the purpose of this presentation, our discussion today, we're just going to focus on those core areas. So with consideration of just focusing on those things that we're naturally good at, I wanted to provide a few examples of some celebrities who have done the same, just to bring the point home. When we're thinking about things that we're naturally good at, I'm sure all of us can identify something that just comes with ease to us, but there are also some things that we have to work at very hard to even get halfway decent at. So if we're able to identify those things early on, continue to practice and improve in those areas, we really stand the chance of being very excellent and excelling in those areas. So to provide some examples, I'm going to show you some of my personal faves, and they can illustrate how they identified their talents, practiced at it, and became just stellar in their particular expertise. So the first I'm going to highlight is Venus and Serena Williams. We all know that they started very early on with learning how to play tennis through coaching of their father. And they went on to playing professionally very early on, I believe in the teenage years. And we could see now that they are just rock stars within that particular sport. But they didn't get there without practice, without dedication, and identifying that, hey, this is a core strength of mine. Let me work at it to make sure that I'm able to do better. Now, I'm sure I don't have this information readily available to me, but I would guess they're probably not as good at some other sports. Like they probably wouldn't be awesome at, I don't know, basketball or soccer, that type of thing. They probably could perform pretty decently because, just of the rigor and the training that they've experienced through tennis, but that isn't one of their core areas of strength. So they took what they knew, what they already did very well at, and used that as a way to excel in their careers. The next person that I want to highlight is my musical favorite, Stevie Wonder, another person that identified his talents very early on. I believe he started his musical career at the age of like 12 or 11. And others around him, his support system identified that, hey, he has something here. Let's see if we can get him a record deal. Of course, he landed at Motown. They even referred to him as the little boy genius when he was in his younger years. And now, just because I love Stevie, I would say that he's a musical genius now, as an adult. But again, it's another example of someone identifying like, hey, I have natural talents and abilities related to singing, related to being able to learn different instruments. Let me work very hard at this, and then I will be able to perfect my craft. And then lastly, a more recent example here. This is Marseille Martin. Again, these are all of some of my favorite people, but she plays Diane on the show Blackish. And again, identified very early on, I have a knack for acting. And because that she has worked so hard with perfecting her acting and really leveraging her skills and abilities, she has now gone on to begin producing movies. And as you can see, she's, holding all of these awards and everything. So these are all, great examples of individuals who made that early identification, made the commitment and put practice in, and have seen the results of their hard work and labor. So we just talked about 3 examples of individuals who have, really focused in on their core strengths and how that has worked out well for them. This also translates into the workplace. And we kind of see the other end of that if individuals don't, really hone in on their strengths in terms of identifying what they excel at and making conscious efforts to improve in those areas. For the past several years, Gallup has conducted a survey that looks at trends of employee engagement. This snapshot that you see here is employee engagement trends from 2020. So before I get into the details of the data here, just to share what they're generally looking for with this particular survey is they do a random sample of full-time and part-time employees, ask them various different questions to determine what their level of engagement is at their place of work. And there are 3 core areas in which people normally fall into. So 1, there's the employees who are engaged. Then 2, there's the employees who are disengaged, and then 3, the employees who are actively disengaged. So to describe engagement, those who are engaged, they are making strides to really excel within their professions. They are trying to make those connections with their colleagues and see how they can be supportive and help. They're being proactive and determining a need, before it arises. They're thinking ahead and thinking about their professional development and what their next steps are forward. Active contributors to their organization. So those are the employees who are considered engaged. For disengaged, those employees are pretty much just showing up for the paycheck. They need the job. They're not going to go above and beyond. They are just strictly there because of their responsibilities, and it's just kind of like filling that void for them. They're not going to, volunteer to serve on any committees or that type of thing. And honestly, they probably don't see a connection between how their skills, experiences, their future aspirations really connect to where they currently are. So that's the disengage. And then actively disengage. I don't know if we want to, share a little bit within the chat on what we think that would entail, but the actively disengaged, takes it a step further. Those are people that are probably doing things that are unethical within the workplace. They're trying to cut corners. They're probably actively looking for other employment, looking for a way out. So the interesting thing about this survey is that over the past several years, the numbers in terms of engagement and disengagement has remained pretty consistent throughout the years. But within 2020, for I would say obvious reasons, they did see a dip in engagement. It normally stays around between the 35, 36 range for employee engagement. But in 2020, it took a major dip. And as you can imagine, all of the different things that we endured this past year, but from COVID-19, the pandemic, to really the spotlight on systemic racism, the political climate, so many things that we endured last year where people, and we had to transition to a lot of us. I'm still working from home within my current role that I'm at now. But not having that personal connection and being able to connect with friends and family, or even go into the office, really reflected in these engagement survey results. So as you see here, instead of that traditional like 37, 38%, or 35, 36% or so, it dipped down to 31 in June of 2020. And then there was a influx or a peak there around July, and then it's leveled back off at this point, especially as we're now starting to transition back to being able, some of us are being able to return to the office where, we have the opportunity to put things in place so we can see family and friends at this point. So I think that has impacted the engagement level a bit more there. But as I mentioned, with that, the numbers have remained relatively the same. So I think they started this engagement survey in 2000. So with that, with the numbers remaining the same, it's kind of the same level of employees who are, I would say, maximizing their strengths and really doing what they need to do to put in their best foot forward at their positions. But then we have, 60% or so, well, probably not even that, 50 to 60% or so who are falling to this disengaged or actively disengaged criteria. So I wanted to highlight this because if we're thinking about how this translates into our own professional settings, we want to make sure that we are putting things in place so we can be in that top category of engaged employees, and making sure that we are aware of what we bring to the table, and aware that what strengths we possess and how we can be a support to our colleagues, opposed to falling into these other two areas. So I want to do a quick activity with everyone. We've talked a little bit about the concept or the theory behind strengths, and why Gallup has encouraged us to just focus on our top 5 or so. But I want to know what actually comes to mind for you when you hear the word strength. So if you see at the bottom here, we're going to do a word cloud, and you can respond by either going to the website pollev.com/Kimberly Bell 406, or you can text 37607 Kimberly Bell 406 to submit your responses. I'm just interested to hear, how would you define strength? What are some keywords that come to mind for you? And I'm going to briefly exit out of the PowerPoint so we can see what some of those results are. Okay. So again, you're going to use, and let me confirm before I go on, can everyone see my screen still that I've exited out of the? You can't see the screen. Okay, awesome. Okay, so again, you're going to go to either this website or text this this particular code and number to begin inputting what are some of your thoughts related, what comes to mind for you for when you hear the term strengths. Uh-oh.
Kim, we can see your screen, but it's actually wavy. It looks like it's a bit distorted, so you may
Okay.
close out and bring it back up.
Okay, got it. So I'm gonna stop my share and then I'll reshare it and go from there. And if it doesn't work, then what we can do is we could just have people chime in via the chat, or if someone wants to raise their hand and just say quickly what their thoughts are when they hear the term strengths, that will work as well. So let's see. Amy, can you confirm, does that work better?
It does, thank you.
Okay, awesome.
Wavy is gone.
Okay. And just so we aren't losing too much time to wait for those responses to come in, what I'm going to do is ask for people to still input their responses using the code that I mentioned, but I would love to just to hear from a few people on what were some of the key things that came up for them when they hear the term strengths. Would anybody be interested in sharing? Okay, so characteristics that are positive, absolutely. What else comes to mind when you hear the term strengths? Or what does strength mean to you? Resilience, absolutely. Doing your absolute best, for sure. Courage, that was definitely one that came to mind for me as well. Independence, flexibility, expertise, possibilities. I love that one. All right. Okay. Ability to keep it light. I like that one as well. Okay, so we have some good ideas flowing here in terms of what strengths mean. Now I'm going to go back to sharing my screen here so we can actually talk about the actual definition of strength and how it applies to this particular assessment. So I'm going to transition back to that now. If you give me one moment, it is not cooperating with me at the moment. Okay. And to confirm, you can see my screen now, correct?
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
Great.
Okay, so the actual definition of strength is your talent, a natural way of thinking, feeling, or behaving, which we kind of discussed earlier, related to some of the examples that I provided with some of the celebrities and how they had this natural ability and they were really able to hone in on those things. But also with you know, the key theory of we want to start with those things that are at the top of our list, our natural abilities, and working from that. So talent, times investment, so time spent practicing and developing your skills. So making sure that you're not just saying, oh, I know I do really well at connecting folks to other, but not, actually making a conscious effort to reach out or to schedule time to make those connections or to network. So talent times investment equals strength, the ability to provide a near perfect performance. And I want to emphasize near perfect because we're never going to, achieve perfection, but the more investment of time, energy, resources we put into our core strengths, the closer we'll be to perfection. So I'm going to transition to the next point here. So to get to the nitty gritty. So again, I know some of you were able to take the assessment. All of these different themes here probably look very familiar to you. For those of you that were not able to take the assessment beforehand, I think you're still going to get some really good information that you'll be able to apply in various different ways. And this will just provide you with more context for whenever you do decide to take the assessment. So again, 34 different things. We are ranked on all 34 of these, but we generally stay within the top 5, I would say 5 to 10. So depending on your mood, the environment you were in when you took the assessment, you may find that if you previously took the Strengths Finder some years ago, that you may have noticed like a little bit of shift between what your top 5 that's been identified. But generally speaking, it doesn't shift anymore out of those top 10. And with relation to that, knowing that we have those top core strengths, that's where we want to devote all of our energy. Here we see represented that they also fall into 4 different core domains, including executing, influencing, relationship building, and strategic thinking. Many people have themes that cover across all 4 different domains, but some only have themes that go across maybe 3 or 2 of the domains, and that's okay. The key thing to keep in mind there is that your strengths are unique to you, and we're going to talk a little bit about how exactly to, I guess, navigate that if you don't have strengths that fall into one of these domains and what you can do. So we're going to go into a little bit more detail about each one of these domains. So the first is executing. So those that have things within the executing domain are typically those that are able to get the job done. They are the go-to people. When you want something done, you're going to go to them because you know that they will deliver. They implement solutions, get things done, make ideas a reality. For myself, and I'm going to show and it's probably blurred out here, but so you can't see it fully, but this is my top 5 that I got that is framed from when I did my facilitator training for strengths. And two of my top 5 strengths are within this domain. So for me, that includes responsibility and consistency, and just knowing how I operate and function. That makes a lot of sense to me. I'm definitely someone that if I say I'm going to do something, I ensure I do it. Even if I'm not able to get to it right away, I'm going to follow up and let someone know, hey, I'm still thinking about this. I just need a bit more time, and try to carry out, on my word there. The thing to keep in mind with those that have themes within the executing domain is that sometimes it could weigh very heavily on them. So at the same time where I said, I'm always someone that if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. If for some reason I'm not able to get to it, or if I'm not able to, I guess, devote as much time or energy as I thought I may have, then sometimes it can lead to me feeling really bad or feeling like, my performance was lackluster and that type of thing. So with this particular one, you have to be very careful on how you're balancing your own expectations, but also with the expectations that you're sharing with others as well. So for the next core domain is influencing strength. So with influencers, those are your persuaders. You go to them, they're likely maybe the I would like to say like the face of your team or your organization. They're the ones that are going to be able to effectively communicate those ideas, do a pitch to others to persuade them and ensure that they're on board and they're willing to partner with and share goals and that type of thing. They're normally take charge people and ensure that the group is heard. So these are all the core themes there for the influencers. I would say myself that I don't have any things, not in my top 5 anyway, within the influencer domain. And again, if you don't have themes that fall into one of these domains, it is completely okay. But what you want to do is think about, if you don't have a theme in one of these core domains, how exactly do you ensure that you're still able to benefit from others, maybe within your network who does? So for me, I see this as a core way in which I can leverage the talents of someone on my team, such as my supervisor. We balance each other out very, very well. I am the executor. I pay attention to all of the details. I make sure I get things done. And she is someone that definitely is able to not only think about some of those details, but be able to translate it in a way that others are now able to come on board with those things as well. So as you're thinking about your own things that may fall into this influencing domain, think about in what ways in which you're able to do that, either personally, where you're able to like advocate for yourself, or in your professional lives as well. And if you don't have a thing within this domain, think about who can you identify that can kind of act on your behalf to make sure that your ideas are heard, and that you do have someone that can really be on your side to communicate the core things that are important to you. Relationship building. This is such an important one. So for relationship building, these are the individuals that are seen as holding the team together. They're the glue that holds the team together. They create different groups, and they always feel that the whole is greater than the parts. So for relationship building, I have 2 within this category, including harmony and relator. And I can definitely see this playing out both personally and professionally for me. Now, what I will say, as we're thinking through all of these, I know that as I mentioned earlier, this past year has been pretty rough for all of us. So I know for me, the relationship building aspect and me being able to fully utilize and maximize harmony and relator has been pretty tough, just because I wasn't able to connect with colleagues and friends and family in the way that I had before, but I found creative ways to do so. As we all did, I ensured that I was able to utilize a Zoom and Teams and all these different things more, but use it in a way that made sense. So creating different groups for different projects that I was working on for my position, so that we will still have that level of connection. Personally, I made sure that I scheduled time to reach out to friends and family to ensure that I wasn't losing that ability to connect with them, even if I wasn't able to physically see them. So yes, making sure that you have some type of strategy. If for some reason a challenge presents itself and you're not able to fully utilize your core strengths in the way that you may have before. I know for my current role, I work at the Association of American Medical Colleges now in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we're the team that I work on is about a team of 20 or so. And we gelled so well together. and we love, connecting together in person. But when we had to transition to telework and working from home, it was pretty tough. But one of my colleagues took it upon himself to implement a theme for our staff meetings each week so that we can still have that sense of connection, better connect with one another, better understand one another by coming up with a fun theme each week for us to discuss before we got into the meat of our work projects and that type of thing. So again, use creativity. Excuse me, use creativity if for some reason you face some challenges, but not being able to fully maximize and utilize your strengths in which you have in the same ways before. And then the final domain is strategic thinking. So for this one, just as you suspect, these are people that love to absorb and analyze information. They help the team make better decisions and stretch our thinking about the future. So a lot of the things here, you probably are individuals who are deep thinkers. You may love research and data. You may focus more on thinking about what lies ahead and the future possibilities, more so than maybe like what's going on in the here and now in the present. But that's okay, because that balances out your teams professionally, but also balances out just the mix of different personalities that you may be interacting with in your personal lives as well. So these are the core themes that fall into that particular category. So we've gone over all of the 4 domains, as well as what each one of those means for those things. If anyone's interested in learning about what one of their specific things means in more detail, I am not going to go over that today, but Gallup, who is the I guess the main creator of the Strengths Finder, they do have on their website short videos for each one of those themes. So if you wanted to dive a bit deeper into what does woo mean, which is winning others over, and how can I best apply that, then you can definitely look at Gallup to get more details about those. So the last 2 things I wanted to do with you all today before we concluded our session was talk about practical strategies for you applying this within your lives. And I wanted to point out some core areas that I've seen StrengthsFinder really benefit individuals in various different arenas. The first being job search. One of the core questions that we hear a lot when we go on an interview is, tell me about your strengths. Well, what about your weaknesses? So this gives you kind of a framework to identify what are your core strengths. You might not say, my core strength is harmony or responsibility, but you may take that as a starting point to figure out an example to describe what some of your core strengths are. That can also give you a framework by looking at your list to determine what are your areas of improvement as well. I don't like saying weaknesses, because we all have the ability to move from one point to the other. Again, may not achieve total perfection, but we still have the ability to improve. But that can give you some framework there, just in terms of being prepared for those types of questions within your interview. It also gives you context as you're thinking about, okay, what are the key things that I want to include on my resume or a cover letter, or core examples that I want to include on my personal statement. And of course, you can always utilize your strengths as a way to really build on networking opportunities. And you'll see that as a theme for each one of these core areas that I've identified here, that you can utilize these to ensure that you can best figure out how to connect with others, and how you can ensure that you're able to best benefit someone else, and they can best help you as well. Professional role. So team dynamics, I already talked about that. You're gonna which you probably already experienced, but you're gonna be working with individuals of very different personalities, very different skill sets. But that's what makes a team great, because everyone's able to bring their diverse talents and skills to the table. So again, by knowing the areas that you aren't as strong in, you can then reach out to a colleague or coworker and say, hey, I know that you, really excel in this area. I know that you are, great with data collection or with working with this particular computer program, and really tap into that, knowing, what areas that you probably need some assistance with. Self-evaluation, when it comes to that time of year when you have to evaluate yourself, you can dig into your toolkit of what your core strengths are, what are the areas that you need improvement, and that could kind of help get your thoughts together in terms of how you speak about your experiences. It's always helpful for project planning, because one, how exactly you're going to be working with others, but if you're a manager or a leader, it could also help play into like, how are you going to delegate tasks as well. In terms of academics, I always found it helpful to think about this in terms of course selection, knowing, the areas that you have that natural gift and ability in. And I would say course selection as well as a major as well. But having that sense of awareness, because that can also let you know, okay, I don't do really well in this particular discipline or field. So I'm going to have to develop a study plan or seek additional resources to help me in this area. Again, I mentioned the same way as within professional roles, it can help with group projects and just figuring out, what everyone can bring to the table to achieve a common goal. And then lastly, personal. This has showed up for me in many different ways in terms of relationships and family dynamics, knowing exactly, I would say, like, for a family trip, I'm going to be the planner. I am the one who is consistently mapping out things for us, and making sure everyone, gets to where they need to be by a particular time, where I know my sister may be in charge of a core component of our travel experience. So my mom is going to help with something else. If we have disagreements, knowing what their personalities are and how their strengths and areas of improvement play into that. So just understanding that. And then lastly, you can play into your hobbies, just knowing, hey, I want to start a new endeavor. I want to pursue this particular hobby that I haven't really tapped into before. So it can help you identify what areas that you can grow in there as well. So lastly, we were going to do something very similar to what we did before, when I had you chime in and talk about what your definition of strength is and what it means to you. I wanted to do a little bit of goal setting. We've already talked about how each one of these domains show up. We've talked about some practical application for professional and personal life. So now I want to talk to you about, what do you plan to do moving forward? If you take one of your strengths, one of your top 5, just put in the chat, or you can raise your hand if you're interested in speaking, and just share with everyone, how do you think you can best utilize this within your life, and how you intend to apply it moving forward. So that will be our last activity before you close out. And I'm going to stop sharing just so I can see folks, and then have a better sense of if someone is trying to chime in.
And Kimberly, I will let you know we have 4 minutes to the next session. So we have enough for maybe 1 or 2 folks to share.
Okay. So did anything come up for anyone in terms of how they want to apply their strengths, or did anyone have a core theme that came up for them? They were like, I don't know what to do with this one, or I don't understand what it means. Happy to answer that now. I love that.
Well,
Oh, and
I,
hi,
I'll
Maria.
say something. Okay, even though I look awful here because it's sunny and I have shorts on right now. It's outside. Well, I did the assessmenter, and I was now. Thank you for clarifying the themes and where they fit in. I thought that was really super interesting, and so I had three themes, sure, that were in executing and two that were in strategic. So after listening to you, I thought, oh my goodness, I'm really a horrible, not a people person, and I don't know how to build a team. And I thought that was interesting, but maybe, I don't know, maybe it's because I haven't really been building teams in the past year because I am retired and I'm at home, but I am starting a new career sort of in my retirement. And so I think it helped me and your talk too to realize all of these things are really how my themes now, the executing the strategic really apply to me right now because I'm learning a new, I was at L'Oreal, I know hair color and shampoo. I'm going into a completely new category and I need to learn that. So I'm enrolling online, I'm a learner, to learn this new category of products. But now as I'm a part of a team, I need to re-skill myself in the camaraderie team building area, I guess.
Yes, yes.
So, but I'm going to continue to read all the pages that I printed out, and I thank you for your talk. It's been makes me think more as I'm entering this new career in my retirement. So thanks.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing. And I will say that doesn't mean that you're horrible or terrible within relationship building. It just
I know
means that you're stronger within the executing and strategic domains there. And I would guess that you probably have some of the different things within your top 10 that fall into those other categories. It just didn't show up within the top 5.
Yeah,
so.
no, I'm not worried about it, but I just think it's interesting. It's interesting. So yeah, it was a great exercise to do prior to your talk. So thank you for sending that out. It was good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
And I am going to, I know we have a minute left. I'm not trying to go over. I'm just gonna point out a few other things that our participants shared. So Melissa shared that she's going to be using her connectedness and empathy to continue to support and develop her team. So that is amazing. I love to hear it. Surprised at the higher levels of empathy and personal skills than usual. Okay, so for some people, it's bringing up some things that they didn't know were present within their strengths. So, and that is the point of us taking this, just to ensure that we're well aware again of our skills, abilities, and what we are going to be able to bring to the table. So. I am going to close out now and turn it back over to Amy. I will put my email address in the chat. So if anyone has any questions and want to follow up, feel free to reach out to me. But it's been a pleasure speaking with you all today. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you, Kimberly.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Kimberly. I do see in the chat a couple of folks that need the link to the strengths assessment. So if you need, I know that Donna has commented, Linda, you've commented, you need the link to the assessment. If anyone else needs that link, we are happy to get it into your email inboxes. So if you could just post in the chat that you need the link to the assessment, I'll make sure I capture that after I finish recording and make sure that you get that. Well, I actually need to stop talking myself because Learning Power Hour 2 is now starting. So if you need the links for Learning Power Hour number 2, you can find all links at alumni@marybaldwin.edu/HC Live. And also you should have received an email with all of the links as well. So I'll give you some time to log off and to log on to Power Hour 2. Also, don't forget Cooking with Friends, a tutorial with some of the coziest, yummiest Hunt Dining Hall recipes, apple dumplings and what did I say? Apple dumplings, apple crisp and chicken dumplings.
Oh, boy.
Night, I know. So don't forget about that as well this evening. Thank you for carving time out of your schedules to be with us for Homecoming 2021 virtually. So without further ado, I'm going to hit stop recording and let you log on to Learning Power Hour Session 2. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.